Hi everyone, Liz Klimek here, Planetarium Manager at the South Carolina State Museum. Well, it's December and this crazy year is almost at an end. So let's go see what the night sky has in store for us as we start to close out the year. We'll start by jumping ahead to this upcoming Saturday, December 5th at 6 p.m. looking south from right here in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm starting a little bit earlier than I normally do because I want to be sure to show you these two planets right here. We have Jupiter and Saturn getting lower and lower in our evening skies and also getting closer and closer together. So I've been encouraging folks over these past few weeks and months to go out and not necessarily every night, but every few nights go out and look for Jupiter and Saturn and just see how they're getting closer and closer together in the sky. They're heading towards something called a planetary conjunction later this month, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. But they are going to set fairly early in the evening. This is 6 p.m. If we go to 7 p.m., you can see them sinking together in that southwestern horizon. And if we go to 8 p.m., they've pretty much set for the night. Saturn's still kind of peeking up over that horizon, but it's essentially gone. But we still have Mars high overhead towards the south as a reddish orangish point of light. And so Mars will be out for a bit longer. Now, if we turn our attention towards the east, we do have a couple of nice constellations here. We have Orion the Hunter rising to meet Taurus the Bull. And Orion will be chasing that bull across the sky throughout the night. Now, in the previous episode, I promised that we would devote more time to Orion because he's a pretty popular constellation and there is a lot to talk about in this part of the sky. And originally I was going to do that in this episode, but then I realized that, you know what, he's really a winter constellation. He's going to be higher up in the sky this time of the evening in about a month's time. I know it feels like winter right now, but we're still technically at the tail end of fall. So I am going to save Orion for a bit later. This is actually a really good time to talk about a special object that's high overhead. We'll turn our gaze towards the south and then tip our view so that we're looking more overhead. Here's Mars, and near Mars is a large square up in the sky that forms part of the constellation of Pegasus, which is half of a flying horse. Now you might wonder, why only make half of a flying horse? Why not a full flying horse? There are some other stars back here. Why not say these are legs and just kind of complete the picture? Well, it turns out that these stars over here are part of a different constellation called the constellation of Andromeda. And Andromeda is a figure in Greek mythology. Her mother is not far away. This is Queen Cassiopeia, which kind of looks like a W up in the sky. And these three altogether are characters that are part of a Greek myth called Perseus and Andromeda. It's this really big epic saga that plays out in the sky overhead. If you're curious to know what that story entails, I encourage you to look it up. But here they all are. And if we look in between the Great Square of Pegasus, so go off of this corner right here, go towards Cassiopeia about halfway. So kind of, if you go off of one corner of Cassiopeia in this direction, go off of this corner of Pegasus, approximately midway between them is a little smudge up in the sky. It's within the boundaries of the constellation of Andromeda, and it's called the Andromeda Galaxy. I need to zoom in a little bit more so you can see that better. So this is the Andromeda Galaxy, a little faint fuzzy up in the sky, kind of looks like a little smudge up there. It's also called M31 or Messier 31, which is basically just a catalog number. It helps to distinguish it from the constellation of Andromeda, however, because this is the constellation. I know I've changed our view here. And then this is the Andromeda Galaxy. Now, to be perfectly honest, this is really a challenge object. What I consider to be a challenge object. It's very, very, very faint. In order to see this object up in the sky with your own eyes, you do need to get far from city lights on a really dark, clear night. So there's really no hope of seeing it from within an urban setting. But this is actually one of the best times to go look for the Andromeda Galaxy because it is high overhead early in the evening, and this upcoming weekend and throughout the following week, there isn't going to be a moon, at least this early in the evening. So you get really nice dark skies, and assuming the weather holds, with that object high overhead, you're really going to have a great opportunity to go out and be able to find it, assuming you can find a nice, safe, dark sky site in which to go searching for it. Now, the other reason I wanted to point out this particular object today is because for a long time, astronomers didn't actually know what this little smudge in the sky was. So if you think about it, when you go stargazing and you look up at all those beautiful lights up there, just by looking at those lights, you can't tell what they actually are. You can't tell if that pinpoint of light over there is a star or a planet. You need to get more information about it in order to know what it is. And the same goes for little smudges up in the sky like this one. And for a long time, astronomers were at odds as to what this thing actually was. And it was 100 years ago, this past April, so in April of 1920, when two astronomers got together and had a sort of public debate about the issue. And those two astronomers were Harlow Shapley, the fellow on the left, and Heber Curtis, the fellow on the right. At least I think that's how you say his first name, Heber, Heber. I don't know, I'm just going to say Curtis. So Shapley on the left, Curtis on the right. And they both strongly disagreed as to what this object actually was. Shapley, the fellow on the left, said, you know what, that smudge in the sky is nothing more than a nebula. Basically, a giant cloud of gas and dust in our own Milky Way galaxy. We know of a lot of nebulas in our galaxy, and this is no different from any of the ones we currently know about. But Curtis, on the other hand, vehemently disagreed. He said the evidence does not support that. This has to be another galaxy, far beyond our own, similar to our own. No way that's a nebula. Shapley thought that was crazy. Said there's no way that can be true. Just no way. That makes no sense. The only explanation is that it's a gas cloud in our own galaxy. Now, both fellows did present evidence to back up their arguments, but the problem was neither one of them had conclusive evidence. Neither one of them could produce data that demonstrated beyond any shadow of a doubt what that little faint fuzzy actually was. It wasn't until a few years later when another astronomer came along named Edwin Hubble, and hopefully that name rings a bell. He has a space telescope named after him. Edwin Hubble came along, took some measurements, and was able to show that that faint fuzzy was indeed a whole other galaxy in its own right. And that showed that Curtis's claim was correct. So it's kind of a bummer for Shapley, but oh well, that's how it goes sometimes. So now we know that little smudge up in the sky is a galaxy, but it's crazy to think that we've only known that for just under 100 years. This is a close-up view of the Andromeda Galaxy. So what we know about it is it's very similar to our own. It's a giant pinwheel in space made of stars, gas, and dust. And it appears to be a bit more massive than our own galaxy, larger in extent. I don't want to quote exact numbers because quantities like size and mass are pretty hard to measure precisely, and astronomers are always trying to refine those measurements. And so those numbers do change a bit over time. But it appears to be that this galaxy is a little bit bigger, a bit more massive than our own. But otherwise, it's very similar to our own Milky Way galaxy in shape and structure. It even has its own satellite galaxies, smaller galaxies that orbit around it, just like the Milky Way has satellite galaxies or small galaxies that orbit around it as well. Now, this is a close-up view of the Andromeda Galaxy. When you look at it in the sky, or through a modest telescope, it doesn't look that spectacular. This object is 2.5 million light years away, and that's why it looks the way that it does. Kind of like a nebulous object up there in the sky. But it's the farthest thing you can see with your own eyes without the aid of a telescope, assuming clear skies and excellent viewing conditions. So I hope this inspires you to go out and try to find the Andromeda Galaxy. Like I said, you do have to get far from city lights, find a nice, safe, dark viewing site. And if you can't find the Andromeda Galaxy or you're not able to get away from city lights, that's okay, because there are lots of wonderful planets and constellations that you can enjoy instead. There's no shortage of awesome right here in our own home galaxy, the Milky Way. So thank you so much for joining me here in this episode. And don't forget that the Planetarium is open at the South Carolina State Museum. And come check out our shows. You can check them out at scmuseum.org for more information. Also, the Boeing Observatory at the State Museum does live streams on Facebook Saturdays at 7 p.m., so check that out as well. Thank you once again. As always, take care of yourselves and each other. Click below to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time.